What profession was once highly respected but is now a complete joke? Grocery store clerk. In the old days it was a respectable position to hold. Nowadays it's viewed as a kid job, minimum wage grunt job. I worked in 3 grocery stores. Some of the management positions or heads can be respected, but all of the stockers or cashiers are treated like absolute garbage by people. There's only so many times can scream, complain are you before you just say, dude, I just work here. What the fuck? But no, I have to apologize and make them feel better. No wonder the average stocker or cashier only lasted a few months. Unless you're in small towns. You yell at a small town cashier and she's there for the next 20 years and hates you. Auto mechanic. Back before information was everywhere. Before big chains swooped in. Before the bad actors showed up. It was a decent job. You'd make decent money. Know your customers. Customers respected you. They'd come to you with a problem. You'd fix it up, and you're their best friend. Now, I think everyone has some paranoia. There have been enough scams through low-cost oil change places, enough inappropriate upsells, and too much shoddy workmanship by folks who are either rushing through jobs or just outright don't know what they're doing, break something and cover it up, etc., etc. And, unfortunately, the pay scale rewards this sort of half-assed do-it-quick behavior. Most auto mechanics are on the flat rate system, which in a nutshell means that you're paid a predetermined labor charge regardless of the circumstances or how long it takes. Newer vehicle, 2 hours labor, nothing's rusted or seized, done it a couple times, and perhaps have invested in better tools to go fast. You might be able to hammer through that job in an hour and 15, only to have the customer, instead of being thankful you were able to get their vehicle done ahead of schedule, start whining and moaning that you're ripping them off, paying the mind to the $500 in tools you got just bought so you can do that insert common job here faster. On the other hand, you might have something that's rust damaged, where everything either breaks on removal, or requires tons of time finessing, and 5 hours later, the customer is upset because it's taking too long while you're covered in burns and have rust in your eyes. Oil in your hair, cuts down your arms from trying to meet their needs. 5 hours, for 2 hours of pay. It's lose-lose here, and heaven forbid you get the whole thing done only to have the parts store send over a bad part that fails the next day. Quality control anymore is terrible. You'll work your body to its limit doing everything right, only to have something fail on account of the factory that made it. Just to have the customer start accusing you of scams because their car broke again for the same thing. So then you have to spend another couple hours doing it again. All for your 2 hours of pay. Oh, and the modularity of vehicles anymore. Small parts are coupled together in larger modules, with oftentimes no options to replace said smaller parts. Yes, Tim. The window switch is $385. Sorry, Tim. I don't set the prices. No, Tim. I can't just take it apart. The things are high-frequency welded together at the factory. I'm sorry, Tim. There's really nothing I can do here. TL. Dr. Whole industry's gone downhill. From pay scale, to who's hired, to parts used, to media blasting and paranoia. You just can't win. I think part of it is that it's become very difficult for someone who is not a professional or at least own professional level tools to diagnose their own car issues or do any of their own work. Many of the systems in modern cars are basically a black box to the average person. So this creates a natural distrust given the asymmetric information between customer and mechanic. That plus that fact that most people no longer have a regular mechanic with whom they have an established relationship. New cars don't need service very often. And if you are only taking your car in every couple years, you may never deal with the same person twice. Then when something does go wrong, you are dealing with a stranger and have little or no way to verify what he is telling you about the necessary repairs and costs. Nighttime radio DJ. That medium is barely relevant anymore. If you're not on the air during morning or afternoon drive, you're just filler. Rest in peace, Art Bell. Real estate agent. Before the internet, an agent would have to inform you of houses for sale, etc. Now they basically get paid to sign some documents. I live in Vancouver, and over the last several years I've seen many situations where a buyer goes out, does their own house hunting, and then the agent comes in to arrange the paperwork and collects $20,000 for doing a couple hours of work. Felt like I paid someone an awful lot to read Zillow search results to me. When's the last time you met a blacksmith? Dark souls probably. Engineering drafted. The trade used to be filled with highly skilled tradesmen who were skilled in both mathematical and artistic talent. Now a lot of the industry is filled with ITT grads who only know how to click a button. The trade itself is dying as engineers are being forced to do more of their own computer drafting. I am an engineering technologist, and from where I sit, engineers are mostly managers. Now, while the technologists have widely taken over a good portion of what people typically think engineers do, might just be the trend where I work though. I'd say engineering drafters have just been replaced by technologists as a job title. Teaching. My migrant parents still think it is still a respected career, but teachers are treated horribly. Not only by students, have so much responsibility and work to do, and don't get paid nearly enough for any of it. I feel like where I live they're still respected, but definitely don't get paid enough. They also deal with terrible parents and children too much as well. Blue-collar jobs, or anything that needs manual labor, now they're just seen as jobs for people who didn't finish high school or couldn't graduate, get into college. And it sucks, yeah, which is weird because they pay really good money in some places. Lawyer used to be really respectable. Now, with a glut of law schools providing an oversupply of lawyers and shows like Better Call Saul depicting a less prestigious form of lawyer, the profession has taken a big hit. Lawyers were ruined because of lawyers. Source: lawyer. Journalism. Really though, imagine going to journalism school these days. I can still remember the big fat newspapers when I was a kid. That's how you got the scores from the night before. They were so important. I can't imagine what it's like for a journalist that's about to retire now, who started in, say, 1985. Such an important job. All the advertisers had to go through you, and now you are barely relevant. Being a philosopher, I'd say they were always pretty disrespected. Many of the most quoted philosophers either were treated like mooches by their patrons, or lived shitty, short lives constantly in fear of being put on trial by whatever authority might take exception to their work. Law enforcement seem on par with the current trend. It is here. Map making in the traditional sense? Maybe, but not in the modern sense. The U.S. government alone has a huge number of geodesists, geographers, hydrographers, GIS techs, and a host of other professions maintaining our GPS satellites, a network of public imagery satellites, Landsat, MODIS, Sentinel satellite, and weather imagery satellites. We've got boots on the ground, too. Ground truthing, using drones, ships. It's especially hard to map underwater with satellites and ports. Rivers, channels need to be accurately mapped, and the European Union, China, Russia, India, and any other aspiring nation needs geographic information to make intelligent, rapid decisions. This also extends into the private sector. There are private satellite constellations that supplement government ones. GIS technicians are making maps of everything. Where are cities' construction sites? What areas are affected after a hurricane? Where will the airborne pollution from that factory outside of town go? Where were all those BLM protests actually occurring? Map making is a joke now? No, we're in a damn golden age of map making. You can find a map of almost anything. And why? Because we've got a huge and rapidly growing number of professionals that are allowing us to see the world like we've never seen it before. Hate to say it, but Catholic priest, you can barely mention it without the pedophilia jokes seeping into the conversation somewhere. It is kind of a shame. Really. Not for the priests but for the various other valid criticisms you could levy against the Church and the priesthood. Systematically abusing children gets all the attention. Catholic priests have been in ill repute before. At one point a few hundred years ago, some guy got so pissed off, he ended up starting a new church. I think his name was Gibson Luthier. Something like that. News reporter IDK what you're talking about. I only get the most professional, respectable impression when I read about how this celebrity got slammed on social media for punching a disabled child in the face, only to click the article and read about how a few random people upvoted a meme when a celebrity doing a Make-A-Wish accidentally bumped into the child and promptly apologized with no further issue. And really can't begin to express the kind of top talent it takes to find a viral video and make an article that narrates everything that happens in the video without even trying to pretend you did any further research than just watching the video. Banking. My great-grandfather was a bank manager for the State Rural Bank. Back then, in a country town, the banker was a trusted friend and advisor within the community. My great-grandfather used that power to help many. He helped many non-English-speaking migrants to set up bank accounts and save and eventually to buy homes. There are many Italian and Greek descendant people in town here whose families are wealthy. Few of them realize that all started with the advice and help my great-grandfather gave their great-grandparents a long time ago. He was also the first rural bank manager to hire an indigenous person as a bank clerk. Head office told him to fire the guy. He told head office he wouldn't. Head office threatened to fire him and the clerk. Word got out and within a week head office was flooded with letters, calls and telegrams from supportive community members saying, "Leave our bank manager alone. We support Hi Monsieur." During COVID, all the Australian banks lowered everyone's mortgage payments to help them out, whether you asked for it or not. Ours got reduced from $90 per week to $20 per week. Read the fine print. You still get charged interest and your mortgage is actually increasing as you are not paying off the minimum anymore. Our mortgage has gone up because of this. But no, I have to go into the branch to get my repayments put back to where they were. Well done, banks, for making it look like you helped us all out when what you actually did is push the payments back to make us owe you more money.